How many folks are familiar with that song? Did you see the movie by any chance? I saw it. It was very, very interesting. Of course, not thinking we're just watching a movie about a doll that somehow becomes real, but it's clearly, I think, metaphorical for many people, not just females, especially not just blondes, right? But the whole idea of what you might call an existential crisis that we have today. You know, people not knowing what they were made for, what's their goal in life, etc. I mean, that goes way back. It's not something new, actually. When I hear this song, the first song that occurs to me, the more recent one, would be the one where she's standing on a bridge on a cold and rainy night, and I thought you'd be here by now. There's nothing but the rain, no footsteps on the ground. Isn't anyone going to come to find me? Isn't anyone going to take me home? It's a cold, cruel life. Trying to... No,
Is that Cats again?
Pardon?
Cats? Is that Cats?
No, that's Levine, what's her name? Something Levine. Avril Levine. You haven't seen that one?
I haven't seen that one.
Oh, it's so sad. Jeez. You know, whenever there's a millionaire crying like that on the street, you know. But there's other versions, of course, all sorts of quests for why are we here. Well, when we're looking at Aristotle's ethics, ethica means character, and so the goal really is how do you become a good person, really? What makes a person good? And of course, remember, Aristotle is a student of Plato, and so he's a product of his times, of course, we would say, and an awful lot of what he considers valuable is almost exactly what Plato argues for. And so when we think about Plato and his view that there are three basic types of people, there are those folks that just love stuff and mostly physical pleasures that are associated with that. The pleasure of eating pizza, I suppose, cooking a good meal and eating it and sharing it with others and all those kinds of pleasures. That's one type of person. Then the next type of person for Plato is the spiritual guy, not the spiritual in the kind of mysterious sense, but in the social sense, the person who wants to sacrifice themselves for the community. They don't want to sacrifice themselves for the community, but the goal that they have set for themselves is the success of the community as a whole, whether that's football game, the fighting in war, guarding the streets, at night. Those kinds of people that have put themselves in danger primarily for the benefit of the whole. That's where Plato is coming from. And then, of course, you've got the ones that end up eventually, if they're old enough and have survived earlier life experiences and are now basically retired and can focus primarily on learning for learning's sake, and enjoy that. Their enjoyment is in the abstract solving of puzzles and problems and things. And so they're the wise, according to Plato. And they're the ones that should be in charge of things because of his bias, right? Well, Aristotle certainly picks up this bias. But Aristotle also has a unique problem compared to his mentor, Plato, and that is that the soul is not something that's eternal and already predisposed to be whatever it is, the way Plato does. Plus, Plato assumes that the definition of the good as all the definitions he tries to solve, must have one particular meaning. And we've got all these other pseudo meanings that are quite interesting, but you have to refine them and ask questions and try to figure out, okay, that's one way of talking about the good, but what is the real good? What is the essence of good that gives all these other goods that we think about their quality, right? So there's something essential to it, and that essence is essentially what is really good. And for Plato, we can't quite figure that out in this life because of our bodies being corrupt and attached to the physical world. Your soul has to be released from this prison house of the soul in order for it to once again be united with the ideas and know what the real good is, right? Well, Aristotle's problem with Plato is that, remember, the soul is not something that could exist in an abstract form. For Aristotle, everything that exists has to exist with some kind of physical being, right? And so a person's soul is the activity of the body, right? So that's pretty interesting if you think about it. The body exists and you're doing things. Well, the soul is that doing aspect of it, right? Well, if you're a follower of Plato and your goal is happiness, and it's a very abstract kind of happiness, even though he structures happiness the way he does, pure happiness is going to be at the end when your soul is separate from the body. That's when you're finally united with the good, and so happy. You've reached happiness then. For Aristotle, there is no such thing. And as a result, happiness has to occur while you're alive. So the question, of course, is, well, what is true happiness, and how do we get it? How do we become happy? My quiz question, by the way, I don't know if you've already seen it, is how do you raise a good child? By the way, I've had some people, remember, because I have the online course, and since I post those notes, they're basically a day ahead if they've just kept going week by week, because we had a holiday that kind of held us back half a week. So it's kind of a little odd. But they've been answering it, and a couple of them at least were like, well, you didn't cover this yet. So I don't know the answer. Oh, wait a minute. This is a question I'm asking you. What do you think is the answer to that question, right? Okay, we could go to Aristotle and look for what he thinks is the answer to that question. And I think it's actually general enough that pretty much everyone will actually pick up on the nuances of his answers and will reflect that as a contemporary way of thinking. This is how you raise a good child. So you're going to probably be Aristotelian. I doubt that you're going to be Platonic at all. That's kind of passé for us, right? But Aristotle starts off by first saying, well, we have to first figure out what the good is. What exactly is the good? Plato could never quite exactly find it because of the nature of the problem. And for Aristotle, this is the Nicomachean Ethics. By the way, he wrote two different ethics texts. The other one is just called Ethics. The Nicomachean Ethics is by far the more famous of them. But he starts off by pointing out that there's lots of different kinds of goods. And Plato was wrong in thinking that there's some kind of good essence that all good things have in common. The problem, of course, is that we have lots of different kinds of actions. Good pizza, what's common with good pizza is clearly not what you would have in common with, say, a good book. Because most books are not edible, as far as I've seen. I saw a cat eating a book the other day, which, was a video, so, but, that was, I can't even remember which video that was. There's so many darn cat videos anymore. How do you keep them in order? But by the way, nobody here eats cats, do they? No, I didn't think so. That's not a, ugh. I understand that Italians, especially around the the area in Rome, where the classic structures are, there's such a cat problem that the rumor is that, certain restaurants, well, let's not go there. It's probably not true.
Cat, the light meat or a dark meat?
See, I guess that depends on the cat.
You think so?
And in fact, when we talk about chicken or pork, there's lighter and darker parts of it, right? So, well, and of course, some of you may be vegans or vegetarians. But so, sorry about the reference to pizza and cats, but there's lots of different kinds of pursuits. And so, his conclusion is, at least at this point, that every art and every inquiry aims at some good. Every single one of them. And they're all quite different. You have being a good navigator on a ship. I mean, Alaska's had its history of navigators that weren't quite excellent. If you any of you were around when the Exxon Valdez ran into. Are you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I've read
Reddit says it's dark.
Reddit? And Reddit is correct, right? No argument with Reddit. What is Reddit? It's a service on like Google, right?
Yeah, basically, it's a website where people just post random questions anonymously and people just comment whatever they want.
And cats are
They say
dark.
it's dark.
Cool. Not that I ever want to find out, actually. That should be. Actually, I'm not a cat person. Yes.
The weird thing is that my mom is a science teacher, so we were cleaning up the classroom when we first got in there, and there had in the entirety of the inside of the cat, like in like some sort of liquid, it was like in all types of sort of fluid, and so it was like still dried up, the whole inside of the cat.
Yeah, well, in biology class, you've got to dissect something. I don't know. I think you at least have dead ones. You don't start off with a live cat.
They like have hearts and eyes, or the sheep hearts.
Remember the experiment where they first learned that electricity is part of what makes bodies work was with a frog. And they were just, well, I think it was a dead frog, but they were applying rudimentary electricity, to it, and it would, and they were like, these were the serious people that figured out, hey, electricity.
That was fish.
Was it a fish? When the one I remember reading, they were absolutely amazed at how the frog legs, kind of, I don't think they even had the rest of the frog, they just had the frog legs, and electricity made them operate.
In high school you do it with frogs, but in elementary school we had a lab where you dissected a salmon and then you shocked it.
My-
And so it was raw.
No kidding. My wife did not take biology because at the time at our school at Westchester, everyone had to dissect a fetal pig. And she was not interested, so. And yet she loves biology. She's got more books on biology than shelves hold, basically. But so, back to Aristotle, of course, we end up. How many of you had a chance to see his, not his, but the Aristotle's Lagoon, the BBC program? I highly recommend it because it really gives you about 40-some minutes worth of insight into the way Aristotle did things. So please have a look at it. I have it posted on our notes somewhere. But so there's different kinds of goods, and he's convinced that there is no essential characteristic of the good that you're looking for when you're trying to find the goods. Instead, you have multiple different sciences, and you're trying to find the good in each of those.
What was the word for good at this?
Well, EU is a prefix that means good. So what he eventually leads us to is the fulfilled life, fulfillment, or the best life is eudaimonia. EU and daimon is basically like what we would translate into a demon. And it doesn't mean that there's a demon that possesses you, but in a sense, when you are really happy and you're excited, you seem possessed by whatever it is you're experiencing. And that's what he's referring to. So eudaimonia, eudoxa is good reasoning or good knowledge. Doxology, the study of doxa, or teachings, I guess. Arete is virtue, and that's another kind of good. How do you teach virtue? How do you become virtuous? What he's going to end up concluding is that in each science, or in each profession, or each thing that you can professionalize in, the good is considered kind of a moderation in all things, so you don't over make your dresses so that people can't even wear them. Let's see if I can, this might take me a minute here. I saw it today, and I hope I saved it. I might not have. Let's see if I can. Shoot, I bet I can't do this. What was it called? The Emmys, right? Let me see if I could find it. Is this even a real dress? Am I in the? It's not the same article that I was in. Shoot. Yes, of course.
You're on the winner's list. You want to be on the red carpet.
Yeah, I went the red carpet.
At the top, you go one over on the top bar.
Ah, thank you. Will that work? Yes, here we are. I looked at these today, out of professional curiosity. Some of these are not the ones that I saw this morning, so they're changing them, I guess. Pretty interesting. That's Signet, that title. Remember we figured out the swan babies are cygnets. Jen is still around. But there was one that was green and didn't really look like a real person. Did anyone see that? And I don't know how you would actually move in it even. In fact, they described it as kind of a banana. They've added a whole lot more than what I saw. It would have been quicker. It would have been there already. Nope. And I don't know how to look it up either. Green banana? Did that find it? Maybe I could go faster. No. Whoa. I don't know how you eat in an outfit like that. These are people that were at the Emmys and had their picture taken. You know that, right? Everybody knows that?
You can also just look up green banana Emmys outfit, and it pops right up.
Did you find it?
Yeah. Just look up green banana Emmys outfit.
So I want to go Control F.
No, just go to where it says New York Times, like the URL. And you look up green banana Emmys outfit.
I think, well, let me just say. No, it's not happening. So just go New York Times.
I just did green banana Emmys outfit.
I misspelled banana. I mean, red carpet.
I go to images.
There it is.
Oh.
Where is that?
That's
What
a
is
drag
that?
queen. It's Nymphia Wynn.
It's who?
Nymphia Wynn, she's a drag queen.
Well, I lost it. But
The one over up on the top bar.
so I don't know if you can see it or not, but doesn't look like a real person. If I click on it, it doesn't. It takes us to the page, and then it takes me out of it. So that's not good.
Chick.
She's called the Banana Buddha.
A banana Buddha
She's from Taiwan.
from Taiwan. Okay. And that's how they dress there?
I guess drag queens dress like that.
I guess. Okay. So there you go. Pretty interesting, I suppose. Now I completely forget how we got there. What were we talking about? Professional,
Oh, the best.
being the
dressed.
best dressed. Best dressed, I suppose. If you notice in the military, whether you're looking at Russians, Ukrainians, doesn't matter. The current military seem to be dressed pretty much the same way. So it's like, that's the way military apparel has evolved to be a good camouflage. I remember when BDUs, the battle dress uniform, which was camouflage, first came out, and we were issued our first set of BDUs, and I was at the time working at the NSA. Shh, there's no such agency. But in any case, that building at the time had the longest hallway in government buildings. And I remember walking down that hallway in my BDUs, and civilians would see us coming, and they would all of a sudden act surprised when we were right next to them. They say, "Oh, I didn't see you coming." And that's, of course, absolutely ridiculous, because you stood out like a green thumb in a hallway that was, the basic government bland.